1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
All right, Racing for Heroes fans, it's Brett Morash. We are so excited to have some amazing guests here today. We're going to start off with a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and we're going to end it with a colonel from the U.S. Army, retired, who's a psychologist, and talking about everything from finance today to mental health. Our first guest, though, is Mercedes Elias. She's an investment banker, a fierce advocate in New York City for the veteran space, and she spent almost 10 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, getting out not too long ago, back in 2016. And her final duty station was at 1st Marine Corps District in Garden City, where two of my favorite Marines served as well. So Mercedes comes with some great stuff. And she is on the New York City Veteran Advisory Board, appointed by the mayor recently. So super excited to have her. Mercedes, you on the line?
Yes, Brett, I am. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. And you work in the finance industry now. Like, what's your company?
Yes, I do. I work at Amerivet Securities. We are actually a veteran-owned investment bank. We kind of operate what's called the diversity and inclusion space.
Cool.
So we essentially help big banks, large corporations, or even municipalities raise money in the stock markets through kind of better equity transactions.
Oh, that's amazing. And do you do the equity work yourself? Are you like one of those investment bankers?
Yeah, so I'm part of the client-facing team. Our firm's actually made up of about 48% veterans. So a lot of the veterans come in, and they're really mentored by the guys that have been on Wall Street for about 20 to 30 years. And so the guys on Wall Street that have that experience introduce these veterans to their clients, bring them into their relationships, teach them about how different transactions are executed. So it's really a good opportunity for veterans that are looking to get into finance to come in, have that camaraderie from the military, and have guys that they can learn from on a day-to-day basis just about financial services and what we kind of do day-to-day and how we really raise money in the stock market.
That's amazing. And in fact, the Colonel Johnson is your boss. He's a former Green Beret retired Army colonel. And so I think you have some pretty amazing folks there.
Yeah, so Elton actually is our founder. He's currently our chairman, and he founded the firm in about 1994. He was actually activated after September 11th, and he had to put the firm in an inactive status and was actually the first to do so since World War II. So if you can imagine, FINRA and the SEC had a lot of issues, trying to figure out how to put it in an inactive status, and he actually kept the broker-dealer alive via laptop in Iraq.
That's amazing.
Incredible.
Little known facts. I didn't know that before the show. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I want to say that he's probably the only, guy who ran one of the veteran-owned broker-dealers who had a bounty on his head in Iraq. He actually, I think he was serving in a civil affairs position.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so he used to run the payments for the Iraqi National Army. And so when he was traveling with the money, of course, there was always kind of, a hit. And so there was literally a bounty on his head. Not too many, I don't think I can say that.
Not too many. I again, amazing, and it's an amazing organization you're working with now. But let's talk about your first amazing organization, the U.S. Marine Corps. So
that's right, yeah.
Yes, you joined the Corps. Where did you join from?
So I actually grew up in San Antonio, Texas. My father was in the Air Force, and so he kind of ended up at Lackland, and that's where really I grew up, and he obviously retired.
Yeah.
And I did do Air Force Junior ROTC, and I said, this is a little bit too easy for me. Give me the toughest branch. What's the hardest for women? Yeah. And so really that's why I decided to join the Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about it. I don't think any of them are tougher than that. So no, listen, you're a superstar. And so now I read your bio. It said that you were administrative and legal officer. So what did that look like? Were you a JAG, or were you supporting them? How did that work?
Yep. Sure. I was actually an adjutant. So in kind of civilian terms, on the administrative side, I took care of a lot of HR, award systems, employee reviews, things like that. And then on the legal officer side, I really worked all of the cases where any service members would get in trouble. And I would, coordinate all the investigations, review them, make recommendations, and then if cases were going all the way to court-martial or trial, and maybe they didn't need to go all the way to court-martial, I would help negotiate with the lawyers and whoever the commander was to say, this should be adjudicated at this level. These are the punishments we can administer here. How much do you want to punish the Marines? Things like that. So I did that kind of in Japan. I did it in California, of course, in country in Afghanistan, and then at the recruiting district in Garden City in New York. And each location had very different kind of issues that we had to deal with. So in Southern California, it was a lot of DUIs and maybe vehicular manslaughter, vehicle accidents. And in Garden City, I was working at the recruiting district. So these were any recruiters that were getting in trouble by maybe falsifying health documentations to get kids enlisted or things of that nature. So it was really kind of an interesting experience, if you will.
Oh, yeah. And it is so different. I mean, I just think of the differences between seeing that sort of stuff when I was on sea duty versus shore duty or being forward deployed at Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. And just it's all different and you constantly have to be flexible. And I think that probably is one of the reasons why you're able to deal with the folks that you deal with. Because, I mean, you're dealing with people who are finance professionals. You're client-facing. I'm sure they're very demanding clients. And probably your Marine Corps training helped you with that.
It was really probably the most invaluable training I had, especially throughout the pandemic. The markets were crazy. There was a lot of apprehension. There was a lot of tension. But those of us that were combat veterans were like, hey, we've lived through kind of difficult things. Our president's actually a prisoner of war from Vietnam. He was in the Hanoi Hilton for 62 months. So he kind of came on the phone at the beginning of the pandemic and was like, hey, guys, we could be going through worse. We can get through this.
Yep.
And those were really our marching orders. And so to have staff that can really see calm and clear in a storm, that's been really great for us. And this past year, we had an incredible year. And I think it has to do with the military training of so much of our employees that were able to kind of keep a level head, focus on what we needed to do, really expand our outreach. And like I said, we had a great year.
That's great. And I'm proud of you guys, because you're able to take that military training and put it to work in the civilian space in a way that I don't think people articulate very well. And you just did such an amazing job of saying that.
Yeah, and we do work in the veteran community, so we see a lot of the issues that veterans are facing. And so even one of the things that we helped veterans with over the past year was we talked to a lot of student veterans because, of course, they want to come intern with us. They want to see about employment opportunities. And we saw that a lot of them either had virtual internships, which are, let's be honest, not the same as an in-person internship, or they had their internships completely kind of canceled. So we created opportunities for those veterans to sit with our staff one-on-one and learn about what their roles entailed, what they do if they're on the debt capital markets desk, equity capital markets desk, public finance, and really have one-on-one conversations with our Wall Street guys. And then we actually expanded this effort to include corporate clients. So we had veterans from their employee resource groups or even staff on the recruiting teams talk to them, if they were the veterans, about their transition, what it looked like, best practices.
Sure.
And if they were on the recruiting teams, they were like, this is what we're looking for veterans. This is how to make yourself stand out. And by the way, if you're interested in our company, we are the people that can help you get hired. And so we did actually have some student veterans get hired through that initiative that we had last year.
And you hired them internally, or you helped them get
hired through our corporate clients. Yep. So one got hired as a corporate client. We actually hired 4 interns for our internship program and then actually hired 2 analysts from that. So
fun.
It was really, really helpful. And we're going to continue it in the spring just because it was so successful.
And I'm assuming you have folks that did all sorts of different things in the military, Air Force, Marines, Army, et cetera. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have guys that did motor T, guys that did intelligence. We have another female who runs our communications. She's an Air Force Academy grad, and she did communications in the Air Force.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So really, it's so interesting to see how everybody's skills that they learn in whatever branch they were in can really translate. But the thing is when you're working around other veterans, you understand each other and you understand your experiences and you understand your work ethic, the way you work as a team. And so I think sometimes it's not even about what your occupational specialty was in the military, just the fact that you have the same kind of foundation from serving, that is really what, it makes the cohesive team that we have.
And to that end, your company won the Department of Labor Hire Vet Medallion, the gold one, I believe.
We had the gold our first year.
Oh, platinum.
I believe
Sorry.
we won the bronze. Is it the bronze or the silver? I wish I should know those.
There's only two. There's gold and
was.
platinum. Those are the two.
Platinum, yes. We've had the platinum.
That's
for the
amazing.
Past 2 years. Yep. So
Yeah,
it's with our internship program, and then, of course, just our hiring initiatives. And we actually just hired another female Army veteran to help with our veteran engagement and our veteran outreach, and she's based in Chicago. And then we're actually talking to another female veteran, which is fantastic for me because, for me, you don't see enough female veterans in finance. So I'm so happy that we're getting them, we're kind of pulling them in because a lot of times, especially these female veterans, they just got to see, oh, there's another female veteran. Oh, she's in finance, so I can do that. And that's great. And we want to recruit those kind of talent.
And I'm sure you work with some of my friends over at W Vows as well, with women veterans on Wall Street.
Absolutely. Juan Palisol, who runs it, has done a fantastic job. She does an unbelievable job of kind of creating these opportunities for the military to connect with these large financial institutions. Mm-hmm. So then that way these financial teams can get an outside perspective of what's going on in the world, kind of these geopolitical expertise. And then VOWS overall, Veterans on Wall Street, runs a symposium every year helping veterans that are specifically looking to get into finance. And they have a whole candidate database for any companies that are looking to hire veterans as well. And so I've actually been working, especially these past 2 weeks, helping some of the larger investment banks and even some foreign banks get connected to Veterans on Wall Street.
That's
then that way they can increase their recruitment efforts for veterans in finance. Yeah.
And before I ask you your car question, you're on the New York City Veteran Advisory Board. I remember when Todd Haskins took over as the chair, I think you mentioned that he might be leaving here shortly because they are kind of timed out. But what is the biggest issues facing New York City veterans today?
So the pandemic really shed a lot of light on a few issues for veterans. One of the major ones was veteran homelessness, and this had to do with veterans that lost their job, that were looking for different resources. The New York City Veterans Alliance has what's called the Mutual Aid Network. And so they were reaching out to veterans, helping them pay their rent sometimes, pay any kind of utilities, things like that. And so really, it was great to see over the past, I would say, 8 months, a lot of the nonprofits start working together to say, how can we house these veterans? How can we help these veterans get food? And then how can we help these veterans get employment? And the Department of Veteran Services really kind of worked and networked and tried to get a lot of these organizations together. And they really have come together to help as many veterans as possible. I mean, of course, you can't help everybody, but they have had such a significant impact. When we call these veterans kind of throughout the weeks or the months, you kind of see some of them start doing better. Some of them get laid off 2 or 3 months in. It's a continuous process. But Commissioner Hendon, who took over kind of recently, he's done a great job just kind of expanding the outreach of the Department of Veteran Services and really getting a lot of different capabilities and skill sets within the DVS to help the veterans throughout the city.
That's amazing. And again, that's one of those ones where, we really like to hear what the issues facing the veteran community are. And Mercedes, one last question. I heard you have some experience driving BMWs.
I did. So Brett kind of asked me, well, are you into racing? And I said, listen, I went to an event. It was called the BMW Experience. They wanted kind of owners of BMWs to test out the new models. Right. And they had a racetrack in New Jersey where we could go with a racer and see what the max capabilities of the BMWs were. All the guys absolutely loved it. I was holding on to the seat the whole time.
That's amazing.
Because I was like, I did so many vehicle accident investigations. I think in my mind,
yeah, right. It's all go through your head.
I'm going to be the subject of my own investigation.
Yeah, right. That's right.
But it was a good. It was nice. It was controlled environment. But and I don't know how often BMW holds it, but I know my friend had gotten kind of the invite because he owns a few BMWs.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
No, listen, that's fantastic. Really, and hopefully we'll have a chance to have you down to Racing for Heroes headquarters down in Virginia at some point when all this is over and you can drive some of our race cars in the track and really get the experience. All right. Well, Mercedes, thank you again for being on the show. Truly appreciate it and looking forward to seeing great works coming from you in the future. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Brett.
All right. Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mercedes Elias. But our next guest is Dr. Kathy Platoni. who is a retired U.S. Army colonel, psychologist, and has just been doing amazing things. Her biography runs about 5 pages, and we're only a 30-minute show, so I can't read everything. But some of the stuff that she's doing that I think is just amazing is her work with first responders. Those folks that are at the tip of the spear right now with things like riots and that sort of thing, and then helping them with their mental health. In particular, she is the staff psychologist for Dayton, Ohio's SWAT Team, which I think is just incredible. So, Dr. Platoni, are you online?
I am online, and thank you for that great build-up. I hope I can deliver.
No, I'm sure you're going to deliver. I'm sure you're going to. And like I said, I'm reading your bio. I'm like, is there nothing this woman can't do? I mean, it's you're just great. You're just great. So tell us, how did you get in the Army in the first place? Back when you started.
Back in the day, well, had just applied for doctoral programs in psychology. Always wanted to be a psychologist. Didn't know how I was going to pay for it.
Sure.
When I finally got accepted, the dean of the doctoral programs professional school said, "You know what? My son was in the Army. He got a full scholarship for his doctorate. Only had to serve 4 years. You should apply." So I did. I was one of 3 to receive a full scholarship for my doctorate. This was in 1979.
Wow.
And I owed them 4 years, and I'm in my 40th year of military service now.
Oh, I thought you were retired.
Crazy.
I'm sorry. Mea culpa. So are you retired from the Army still, or have you not quite got there yet?
Kind of, sort of. I was forcibly retired in 2013 due to the drawdown.
Oh, right.
And 2 years later, I was recruited for the Ohio Military Reserve State Defense Force, which is part of the Ohio Army National Guard. So I'm still in uniform.
They keep trying to get me to join the New York State Naval Militia. So I've been keeping it at arm's length, though. Volley to you, though, doing that. And so tell us, I know that you're working with the first responder community. Is that different than working with the veteran community? What's your thoughts?
Well, many of them are veterans, and many of them are still in the reserves, but it's very, very similar because of what they're exposed to on a daily basis. I mean, when we deploy overseas in time of war, we do it for a year or 18 months at a time. These folks do it every single day.
Oh, yeah.
So the similarities are there. The cumulative trauma that they're exposed to is very much the same.
And I've been talking to some psychologists up here in New York as we're looking into one of our programs, motorsports therapy, and really kind of talking about like how do you use that to help veterans who do have PTSD focus on something that's an immersion therapy sort of way, but not exactly the same risk. What are some things that you feel work really well in the first responder community, police, fire? If there's any differences.
For me, it's the camaraderie and the bonds seem to foster a type of relationship that is unique to the first responder community and the veteran and military communities. It's about going the mile with them, rising to every occasion, going on police ride-alongs. I'm on the SWAT team, so I go to all the call-outs. Just had one at 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday. It's spending the time with them and not being afraid to share your own trauma because that legitimizes what they go through. I do all the screenings for 28 different police departments after officer-involved shootings or other critical incidents. So, you're there in the trenches with them, and that's what makes the difference and builds the trust.
I absolutely believe that you are on target there. I think that, one of the things here at Racing for Heroes we always talk about is that team ethos, the working with your fellow veterans, where it really knocks down all of those barriers. And I don't know if you heard
all the barriers, right you are.
Yep, and I don't know if you heard our earlier caller. I mean, she was talking about, like, even within the finance industry, at her firm, they're mostly veterans. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. You have that sense of camaraderie and team ethos,
And having their six, no matter what.
Yeah, and I think that does go a long way. And, it's rare, I think, as a veteran, when you're dealing with civilians, and, nothing against my civilian counterparts, but when you're dealing with another veteran, you automatically assume that they've got your six in a way that you don't necessarily have that with your fellow civilians who've never been through the military service.
Exactly. You know what it is to rise to the level of a cause much more noble than just the self.
Yeah.
And knowing that you would put your life on the line for any of them, whether you know them or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is.
Yep. And I think we all have that ingrained in our bodies and everything else. And I'm sure you saw that in the field. I mean, everything from Desert Storm, and let me ask you this, since you were involved in, really kind of that entire progression, have you seen it gotten better with the Veterans Administration or Army psychology from like what you saw at Desert Storm all the way through what's kind of ongoing now?
I've seen it get worse.
Really?
Because of the lack of available services or not knowing what the available services are, because of the current civil unrest throughout the United States.
Yeah.
That's almost put a damper on feeling that your service was worthy of note and what you've done for this country has any value, meaning, or purpose. It's been a huge slap in the face to veterans to see what just happened yesterday, for instance.
Yeah.
Anybody who is active duty, reserve, guard, you are no longer vetted. We're all being examined as potential white supremacists or extremists.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the new Secretary of the Armies, where they're really doing scrutiny on everybody across the board, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and
exactly.
And it's unfortunate too. I mean, because I think that it's not even if it's well intentioned. I have concerns that what will really happen is it will become somewhat of a witch hunt, and that if people are not in line with certain kind of values, it's going to be problematic for them in the long run.
I agree.
Yeah. And
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, and time will tell. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that with the new secretary, where he's certainly a former general himself, he understands what it's like to have been in uniform. So I think that time will tell, and we're still early in the administration, and I'm hopeful that supports will become better and more available.
That is my hope as well. So it's a wait and see.
So, Colonel, one of the things that we talked about when I first brought you on is you're involved with SWAT Team. How does that work? I mean, how does that work for you? I mean, are you carrying?
I have my phone on.
Are you wearing body armor and going in, or?
Well, for any SWAT call out, I'm on scene.
Oh, wow.
I usually ride in an unmarked cruiser. Sometimes I'm in one of the MRAPs, the assault vehicles, depending on the scenario and how quickly we can get there, because you never know when the calls are going to come. So it's constant availability.
Yeah.
Put on my SWAT gear. I have a SWAT uniform also and a ballistic vest. I don't have the heavy-duty body armor or a weapon, and I'm not a sworn police officer. Wish that I was. But, yeah, I'm right there on scene for whatever happens. I get to interact with all of the officers, the SWAT officers, any of the other detectives on scene. I interact with everybody. If there's a shooting, God forbid, I'm there to provide immediate crisis intervention services. If there's families, say for hostages, I'm there to support them, get them to the right resources. Yeah. De-escalate conflicts, answer questions about mental health issues that may have caused the entire SWAT standoff to lead off in the first place. Answer questions about medications, which may be a factor in why this person has become so violent. Yeah. So it's any number of things. It's always exciting, and you never know what you're going to get.
I would think not. And I'm assuming, Dayton's a big city in the Midwest. You must get call-outs fairly frequently, and I'm assuming they also do some coverage for the surrounding municipalities.
Yes. A lot of times the Dayton SWAT team is called for mutual aid for the surrounding communities. Dayton and the surrounding areas have a population of about 700,000. Dayton itself is, I don't know the exact population of Dayton, but taken with all the surrounding communities. It's relatively large, but it is a very violent city. We've been compared per capita to Chicago because of the numbers of homicides and violent crimes. And until about 2 years ago, it was the opioid capital of the world.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask next. Is I thought that was an issue there in Dayton.
Yes.
And Colonel, so, as you know, this is Racing for Heroes Radio, and we always have to ask some sort of automotive or racing story. I heard that you have some experience with soapbox derby.
You are correct. When I was in college, I'm a graduate of Hobart and William Smith colleges in Geneva, New York. Every year there was a soapbox derby at the same time of the Watkins Glen races.
Sure.
So I decided I was going to be the first female in the history of the colleges to have my own soapbox. So I've been an adrenaline junkie since early on. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, you're definitely on brand for us then, Doc.
Well, I placed in the finals 2 years in a row. The second time without any brakes, almost had a head-on collision with the police cruiser.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be your new call sign. Kathy, no brakes, Platoni. So Platoni, excuse me.
There you go. It'll be appropriate.
Tell the SWAT team that. They'll love it. But listen, Doc, thank you again for being on the show. We're so excited, and thank you for all you do for the military and all you do for our brothers and sisters who are wearing the uniform as police or fire. So thank you.
Oh, my God, it's such a privilege to be able to do this. What a blessing. I get to do things that most psychologists will never have the opportunity to do. I've just been in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Well, again, thank you very much, Doc. And for all of our Racing for Heroes listeners, we will be back again next week. Pretty excited. And this weekend down at Fort Bragg, we're having Race for Heroes Day at Fayetteville Motor Speedway. So, and I'll be sending some stuff out on YouTube from there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and be